Parents, this episode of the podcast series is about sex. Use discretion in allowing your children to hear it. However, your kids will hear franker comments from the media and from their friends, but without the biblical viewpoint or the intent to help them.
It's really fun to have sex with you. I really love it.
I thought you loved me. They call it making love.
Those are just words.
Your Soul, a podcast of Madison Christian Church, Madison, Tennessee. We're talking about
your soul.
For now, we're talking about several kinds of loves. Letter 211. One kind of love is sex.
People often say they love each other, and they're not sure what they mean. We don't want you to be deceived by someone who talks carelessly about love. Just because somebody wants to have sex with you, that doesn't mean they love you. We've been talking about several kinds of loves. One kind of love is bodily intimacy. Even though sex happens in the body, it is not only physical. Sex has a powerful, even overwhelming effect on the soul and spirit. It makes a strong emotional bond between two people. Anyone who thinks sex is only physical is missing out. Anyone who treats another as if that person's worth is about sex is missing out. Maybe you need someone to say what's right and good about sex. Maybe you need someone from church to say that sex is good and fun. Or maybe you need to hear someone speaking seriously and responsibly about this important topic. Maybe you have been hurt and you need to find healing. Maybe you're guilty and you're dealing with the destruction. We're including a lot more Bible passages today than in most podcasts. These are from God, not from me.
I want to start with fun.
You're like spice.
Spice?
Yeah, garlic and horseradish.
Hey!
I mean, sweet spices like cinnamon and cloves and honey, chocolate and donuts and hamburgers.
Eat first, then try to charm me.
Hey, that's not in Song of Solomon.
Let's talk about what's good with sex and how to appreciate it.
Why did God invent sex?
Originally, what was sex about? Before there was a mess, before there was baggage. What did God plan it for? In the first chapter of the Bible, and it's a short chapter, God made people, specifically male and female. That's not closed-minded, oppressive, transphobic, etc. That's what God did. If people don't like it, we need to conform to the reality God made, rather than trying to conform reality to the way we feel. Adjust yourself to please God. You can't adjust God to suit you. So, what is sex for? The value of sex includes pregnancy, but doesn't begin or quit there. Most occasions of sex don't result in childbirth. What's it for then? God made a wide variety of living things and made them to reproduce, each after their own kind. Then he made people, made us male and female, and told them to reproduce, to fill the earth. There was a reason given for that. Humans were given dominion over the earth. The first humans had the mission of managing earth. So, one purpose of sex before sin and yuck was reproduction, towards ruling the world. Clearly, sex was intended for a lot of purposes, and the very first one was to support the purpose of ruling the world. In the second short chapter of the Bible, God said it is not good for the man to be alone. I agree. Adam needed a helper suitable for him, so God made Eve from Adam for Adam. He didn't make a male friend for Adam, or an animal friend, or a machine, or a virtual relationship. He made a helper, and he made her a woman. So the second purpose of sex suggested in the Bible is to meet the needs of an individual. This means that people had needs before anything went wrong in the world. When Adam met Eve, he said something which sounds strange in English. This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. That book was originally written in ancient Hebrew. I don't read or speak Hebrew, but I'm told this little speech could be better translated as an expression of emotional excitement and fleshy appreciation. So we find another purpose of sex spelled out in the Bible was emotional excitement and fleshy appreciation. Nope, correct that. The third function of sex clearly shown in the Bible is wow. The woman, Eve, was on the receiving end of that wow. Genesis 2:23. Adam and a woman saw each other for the first time, and they were both naked. Wow! God is very much in favor of sex. It was his invention. All that sexual content is in the first 2 pages of the Bible. All of that is before sin, deception, temptation, trouble. There is a sense in Genesis that sex wasn't originally intended about rules. It was intended for a long-term, worldwide purpose. It was intended to be wholehearted. It was intended for the good of individuals. It was intended for 2 at a time. Let's go on. There's more. The purposes of sex include reproduction, obviously, Genesis 1:28. Togetherness, Genesis 2, verses 18 through 22. Emotional excitement and fleshy appreciation. Nope, correct that. The third function of sex clearly shown in the Bible is wow, Genesis 2:23. And there's more. Becoming one flesh, Genesis chapter 2, verses 24 and 25, and Matthew 19, 4 through 6. Bonding with your spouse. Sex in the Old Testament is often described as knowing your spouse. For example, Genesis 4:1, another good use. You can comfort your spouse when he or she is suffering. 2 Samuel 12:24. Pleasure. Proverbs 5, verses 18 through 19. Yes, it's for pleasure. God approves. God wants it that way. Another purpose of sex includes powerful spiritual effects we barely understand. Those are suggested in Proverbs 6:26, Proverbs 31:3, Hosea 4:11, and so on. Another purpose of sex is to build intimacy in marriage. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verses 10 and 13, Proverbs 5:17, and more. And let your spouse know that he or she is a wow. All through the Song of Solomon, the 2 lovers appreciate and admire and compliment each other and build each other up. Also, sex is giving to your spouse. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 3 through 5. This passage says you shouldn't hold back your body from your spouse. It belongs to your spouse, and your spouse's body belongs to you. Be good to it. And sex is also a picture of our relationship with God. Ephesians 5, verses 31 and 32. 2 Corinthians 11:2. Hosea chapter 2. What does that mean? I don't know. The best explanation I've heard is that marriage is a rumor about heaven.
Have you ever seen a pool of water at night? That's what your eyes are like.
Ooh.
And your mouth, so sweet.
Oh,
And your nose
my nose.
is like a tower.
My nose is like a tower?
Yeah, that one is in the Song of Solomon. In what way is sex loving? What about all the sex without love?
If a relationship has enough strength from other kinds of loves, then sex builds closeness on several levels. But sex without love is cold, hollow, and damaging to the soul. This is one reason, among many, that sex is rightly reserved only for marriage. We're better off with greatly uplifting sex, supported by several other loves, than with greatly damaging sex, and not dissipated among several partners, but focused intensely on one person. There's a ridiculous idea that sex and love are for teens, but not for marriage. Don't fall for it. Sex and love can get much better with time and commitment. There's another really bad idea, that sex is for your enjoyment only, and you get to use the other person or persons for your selfish gratification. You wouldn't want someone to treat you that way, so treat the person you say you love as you want to be treated.
Are you sure sex is love and not just something physical?
Sex is more than just physical. Proverbs 5, verses 18 and 19 says, "Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love." I would like to say something here about being intoxicated in your spouse, but I won't. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 2 through 9, portions of the Song of Solomon. These all show that sex is about love, more than just physical love, within marriage.
Sex is forbidden outside of marriage.
Does God give any rules or guidelines about sex? Yes, but that's not the main point. God gave the first humans an inflexible rule. Violating that rule would have horrible consequences. And it did. That rule wasn't about sex. But yes, the Bible does speak strongly and often about our sexual behavior. By the way, you should read these. I'm just giving references. I'm not quoting all of them. For example, Deuteronomy 22:13 through 30 is a long passage. Part of it reads, "If a man is found lying with the wife of another man, both of them shall die. So you shall purge the evil." Exodus 20:14, "You shall not commit adultery." That was one of the 10 biggest laws that God gave. 1 Corinthians 6 verses 9 and 10 says that sexually immoral people will not inherit the kingdom of God. 1 Corinthians 6:18 points out that sexual sin is an offense to your own body. 1 Thessalonians 4 verses 3 through 5 talks about the will of God. You want to know what God wants for you? This is it. Stay away from sexual immorality. All these warnings. Why? Why does God care what we do in the privacy of our own bedrooms? Here's why. Speaking of a different rule that God made, Jesus said in Mark 2:27, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." In other words, it's not so that we can obey the rules, it's that the rules are good for us, especially when we don't understand why they're there. Our sexual behavior affects us. We don't understand everything sex does, even if we think we do. For example, Proverbs 6:32 says, "He who commits adultery lacks sense. He who does it destroys himself."
What if I've been hurt?
What if you've had some terrible sexual experiences and sex doesn't seem like love to you? First, I'm sorry that happened. That's horrible. If you've been hurt sexually, you need more than can be done in a few minutes of podcast. Please get help for yourself. Hurt can last a lifetime. That doesn't mean the wreckage has to. Don't let that terrible hurt lead you to making terrible choices. If you have the smallest possibility of forgiving the offender or offenders, forgive them. There is no excuse for someone to have done harmful things to you, sexual or otherwise. They need forgiveness. They have no excuse. And there is no excuse for you to harm anyone else. Don't pass along those harmful experiences to other people. Get healing if possible. Hopefully, your spouse will love you and make sex something good and healing for you.
What if I've done wrong and now I'm dealing with the damage or the hurt?
What if I've done wrong? We've all done wrong. We might have to live through the pain and damage, but God will go with us. God offers forgiveness. God tells us not to do wrong, but He doesn't stop there. He knows we will all fall. He remembers what we're made of. He knows we are dust. He doesn't give us an excuse, but Jesus offers to carry the burden and the blame. He does require that we turn to Him and turn our back to our wrongdoing. Mercy is the withholding of deserved punishment. Mercy is what God offers us.
That's a lot of stuff here. Can you say it quick and simple?
Okay, sex is a gift from God. It's intended for much better than we imagine. Let's use it the way He intended.
When you say, I love you,
I love you.
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 I love
I
you.
love you.
I love you.
I love you.
when you say, I love you, what do you mean?